another Veterans Network podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Kennedy, co-founder of Veterans Network. We would like to give a quick shout out to Bravo One Vehicle Sales, a veteran-owned business located in the UK. You can find them under Bravo One Vehicle Sales on Facebook for more information. We recently established comms over the pond and spoke with a former US Army Colonel, Robert Campbell, to discuss his transition from the armed forces to the civilian world. And we felt it would be interesting to compare the military to civvy street transition in the US compared to the UK. We also briefly talk about Robert's new book titled It's Personal, Not Personnel. We must apologise for the ongoing audio interference throughout this episode as our Skype connection across the pond wasn't at its best. Still, as they say, the show must go on. So let me introduce you all to Robert Campbell.
Hey, it's good to talk to you. I'm glad to connect, and looks like you're into some neat stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, likewise. It's very good to connect with you. It was very nice of Jim to link us up. Why don't you just tell us about yourself, Robert? Tell us what it is you were doing in the armed forces out in the US.
Yeah. So I did 27 years. I joined back in 1990. I was commissioned in '89, and I never looked back. I was in college and got a business degree, and then went off and got on active duty and just kept on going. I'm an infantry officer, and I commanded units at all levels. My last biggest organization was an Army brigade in the 101st Airborne Division. 1st Brigade of the 101st. I deployed a portion of it to Afghanistan, and I served all over. I've been in the 82nd Airborne Division. I've been in the 25th Infantry Division of Hawaii. All the major, infantry units of the Army, and I'm Ranger qualified. I'm a paratrooper. I've done all the crazy stuff that you see in the movies. I'm an Iraq veteran, and I'm a Afghanistan veteran. Got 3 Bronze Stars, and I retired last fall. It got to the point where the Army's path and my path started to diverge, and my wife and I had some different goals and desires, and so it wasn't a bad split. It was just time for us. It was personal, so we made the call and transitioned out and bought a house here at the beach on the North Carolina coast. And I took some time off after I left. I was very busy in the Army. It was a very demanding career, very rewarding, but a very demanding career. And then I wrote a book last year called It's Personal, Not Personnel. And it talks about my leadership experience and lessons that I learned and tips that business leaders and military leaders can put into practice in their own organizations. And it's largely about my experience in brigade command when I took a very personal leadership approach, trying to get to know my people on a personal level so that I could lead them better. So I did that. I published it in October of this year, and it's up on Amazon now. And so I've been doing some speaking and some consulting based off of what I talked about in the book, and looking at some other career options right now. So I'm kind of at a crossroads. But it's been an interesting year and a half of transition from what I did in the military day in and day out to a very different lifestyle.
I imagine going from such a high rank and with such experience, what was it that you found most challenging about the transition from the armed forces into the civilian world?
Yeah, most challenging. I think there's a couple of things. One of it is your ego. My ego. I was a brigade commander. I was a full colonel in the Army, and so I was, an executive in an institution. I was a senior leader in an institution, and by rank and by position, I commanded immediate respect and prestige. And so you kind of shed that a bit as you walk into the civilian world, because you don't wear rank on your civilian clothes. Nobody knows who you are and what you've done. And I don't resent people for that, but I mean, that's, part of the difficulty in transition is all that you did and all that you've experienced you can be around people that don't have that type of experience and don't really understand what it is you did. And so, I have to be honest, it's a little frustrating sometimes that people don't understand, because it really truly is the 1% or less that serve. Most do not. And so there's that separation. And I don't walk around resentful of people for it, but it is a bit of a challenge to either explain what it is that I did and the level of responsibility that I had, and what it meant to be, who I was, and I don't know what all that means. I guess the other part of it is, you're a bit isolated now. So one of the things I learned from a Vietnam veteran that came and talked to my organization was, we all carry, us combat veterans, carry some level of PTSD. I don't have an extreme level. I don't claim to really have PTSD, but I know I have some form of, I have recollections of bad things, and I look back at difficult situations in combat, and I think about them a lot. I think that's a version of PTSD, though it's not traumatic for me. I don't lose sleep over it, or I don't have deep trouble. He did, but only when he separated out of the military, because when he was in uniform, he was very close to, people that had the same type of stories and could resonate with his experiences. Well, now on the outside, it's very different. And I don't necessarily have anybody to turn to day in and day out that can relate to, the road that I've been on, and the trouble and hardship that I have seen. So that's a bit difficult. And then, to wrestle with that a little bit, but listen, it's a good thing. I don't mean to come across that it's been a bad transition and I'm struggling, because I'm not. I'm really enjoying the freedom that I have and this new life that I have, but it's not easy. You step out of something that you're so accustomed to. A friend of mine told me it takes 2 years to deinstitutionalize, because I did 27 years. I'm institutional. I could put the uniform on right now and go back in, speak the language, and pick up where I left off. But you have to kind of shed that, put that behind you, and move on to a different thing. And so, it's a little slow and difficult. That's a long answer to a short question.
But it's very detailed. And sorry, I'm just getting a little bit of feedback there. I can hear myself on your thing. Yeah, the thing is, there's so much common ground there with us, with British veterans and American veterans there. We share the same struggles as you there, definitely. I've been talking with veterans for the last year about the transition from the armed forces to the civilian world. And you've basically there just explained pretty much what every veteran I've ever spoken to has all said the same struggles there. I'd like to go back to the PTSD thing, because I don't know about America, but over in the UK, I feel that maybe PTSD needs a wider umbrella as such, because at the moment it seems that PTSD is just a pigeonhole. But I feel like there's several variations of it, like you just said there, and several severities of it. Now, I feel that although we're getting better at recognising PTSD over here and acknowledging it and then supporting it, I still feel like there's attention to detail, that there's different specific types of PTSD maybe, and there's different severities of it. How do you feel that the American population sort of recognise PTSD, and how do you guys go about the support for PTSD out there?
Well, I think there's a gross misunderstanding of it, and I think there's a gross generalization of it as well. And so, I think there's this notion out there that I'm an Army veteran. I've got 3 Bronze Stars. I've got 3 tours in combat, and I have PTSD. I have problems. I can't function in daily life, and so I may be a threat to an organization that just doesn't know how to deal with me and handle, that stress that I bring, because I'm so tormented. Well, I'm not, and most veterans are not. A vast majority of veterans are are not tormented by their combat experience. It is something that will always be with them, but day in and day out, they function fine. And so I think there's this, this gross misunderstanding. When you say PTSD, people think of it in terms of one thing. This is a person that's suffering from combat stress, suffering day in and day out. And it's not necessarily the case. Yes, there are some, quite a few, that do have troubles with it. And, those that do, I would hope are getting the help that they need, or communicating that with those that might want to, so that they can function in life. But it's hard. I don't know that we've gotten far enough with that we serve to help them understand what it is and what their role in understanding it and maybe employing somebody with it is. I could probably go down to Wilmington, which is the nearest city to me, and prove that there is huge misunderstanding. Ask somebody what PTSD is and what that would mean for them as a employer of a veteran. I don't know that they would be able to really answer that smart enough. So I think there's a big misunderstanding of what it is, and I think that exists out there, and I don't necessarily fault civilians for it. It's probably something the military has to do a better job at communicating, to somebody that just doesn't know military, of what it is and what it means and what they can do. In my brigade, I had more soldiers with societal type issues, failed relationships, lack of resilience, than I had with combat stress. That really was a bigger problem for me. PTSD was really a smaller one. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, in hand with that, our interpretation of the support network of America's support network for veterans over here in Britain, we feel that your support network and the general American population supporting veterans is a lot better than what it is over in England. Although, fair to say that the British public are getting far much better at recognising veterans and supporting veterans. And there are so many organisations now and charities that are getting better and better by the day. But I personally still think that veterans in America have a lot more respect and a lot more recognition from the general public. Is my interpretation of that correct in your eyes, or do you feel maybe I'm way off?
Well, I certainly can't speak to the UK, although I don't doubt at all what you're saying. And maybe it's just a misunderstanding, or it's just an area that this new generation that really hasn't had to experience hardship. And I don't like to stereotype about generations. I really like to refrain, but to generalize, if I could, and to maybe help wrestle with why that is. A generation that hasn't necessarily experienced hardship, that really can't understand what a veteran goes through or has been through, where that would be true in the UK. There is an enormous amount of respect for veterans here in the United States. I get thank you for your service quite often, and the moment somebody realizes you're a veteran, it really it puts you up on a higher place, just because I think they have some understanding of what you've been through and in their mind. One thing, Jamie, I think is important, and you asked earlier about my frustrations or the challenges of the transition. One of them for me is, what does a veteran bring to an organization? If somebody has served their country and fought their wars, and has come home and wants to go into, the business world or the private sector, what qualifications do they bring? I think from a veteran standpoint, for instance, I don't have a lot of, like, you get on LinkedIn, you see all these qualifications that people have, SHRM, the Society of Human Resource Management certification, or Lean Six Sigma, or all the little 3-letter acronyms that are certifications that people go through, that they have on their resume, that these search engines inside of companies look for to bring people in. where a lot of these people might have done that in their education because they didn't, they weren't serving in a military organization. They get the advantage over a veteran, which I believe brings in a very tangible benefit to an organization that isn't necessarily codified in a label like, SHRM or PPD or whatever it is. They bring so much more. They bring in that sense of duty. They bring in that mission accomplishment. At all costs, you accomplish the mission, regardless of the time, a day it takes or whatever it takes. You get it done. And so it's those things that most veterans bring into organizations, which organizations I think are missing completely in this whole interview process. Here's an example. I applied for the director of human resource, the executive director for human resources at a local community college here, right? It's a pretty good community college. It's a big organization inside the city of Wilmington. I had the #1 brigade in the Army for human resource performance during a incredibly challenging time, a huge accomplishment. They didn't even want to talk to me. Now, I think, I don't know what the reason. They might have looked at my resume and said, okay, this is too small for somebody that has commanded at this scale. That would be fair. But I seem to think it's because I didn't have that SHRM certification that they cast me aside immediately. I would be perfect for that role. I don't know that there's a challenge down there that I couldn't overcome through my organizational leadership practices and my experience leading large organizations in very challenging, difficult, dangerous environments. You would have thought that somebody would at least want to talk to me and say, okay, here's what this role entails. Are you the right fit? Do you fit in with our culture? They didn't even want to talk to me. And that's a frustration that, it's a blow to your ego. It's like, really? I mean, I don't know that you have a challenge down there I couldn't overcome. And I think that happens a lot just based off of this conventional thought or conventional thinking of what an employee needs to have in terms of, 3-letter certifications versus the tangible, loyalty and dedication and duty and, teamwork that a veteran brings into an organization.
The thing that I find is exactly the same in UK, where employers and organisations, they've kind of, I feel, sort of overlook your experience and skills that you've acquired in the armed forces, and rely too much on what qualifications you have and credentials. Now, a key thing that we've been trying to harp on to about veterans in the UK when transitioning from the armed forces to civilian street is how the skills, we're trying to highlight this as well, I'm trying to really highlight this, is that the skills that you acquire in the armed forces are transferable, but you just need to sort of translate them as well and put them into like when you're writing your CV, or for you guys it would be your resume. It's a case of translating those skills into a language that civilians can understand. So, for example, I was a section commander, but to anyone in the civilian world wouldn't understand what the hell that meant and wouldn't really understand what that would entail. So I would have to reword that in a way that I would be a team manager of so many people. I guess that would give it a little bit more credibility. But yeah, I guess it's just a case of translating that your skills into a different language that the civilian population can understand. But
yeah, it is. It's a two-way street for sure. I mean, veterans have to be able to speak the language. I still find that, I speak a military language, and I've got to shed that when I'm in a room full of civilians. I'll use military jargon, and I really got to get away from that. It's part of my DNA now. But that will come over time with practice, and I'll be able to speak better. But yeah, like I was a brigade commander, or in civilian terms, I was a CEO of a 5,000 person organization.
Just one last question for you. What's your aim now? What's your vision for as you're going into the civilian world? What do you want to achieve next?
Yeah. Well, I have. I was lucky. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep, I got you.
Yeah, I was lucky. in the military where I got a chance to do a lot of introspection and self-awareness and really authenticity in terms of who I am and what it is I want to do. That doesn't change. So my core purpose in life is to make a difference in the lives of other people through optimistic leadership. That's my bumper sticker. I carry that card in my wallet. That's what I do. So I've got to find a way to do that, in the private sector. That doesn't change. If I chase something else like money or something false, I'm going to wind up unhappy. And so, the consulting stuff, the speaking about my book, the public speaking, I do enjoy that. I'm also looking at maybe doing some financial advising where I get young military couples lined up for, more financial security as they move, as they grow in their lives and care for their, family. So it's those kind of things that if I can give back and help others, that will bring me fulfillment. And so we'll kind of see where that road goes. So I just got the book out. I'm enjoying speaking about it. I think that will take off a little more, and we'll see where it goes. I also enjoy things like this, talking about the veterans transition and what a veteran brings to an organization. And so I could see a lot of benefit where, I could go into an organization who's hiring people and has got 30 candidates, 6 of which are military. I could probably help them determine, okay, who is the best fit? Of these 6 veterans, would you want them in your organization based off of what they say they did? Maybe there's something there. So we'll see where the road goes.
What's the title of your book?
It is, it's called It's Personal, Personal, not personnel, Personnel. I used that line when I was talking to a human resource department in the Army about one of my soldiers, where they were just really taking a very impersonal approach to this person, moving him or her to a new location when it really wasn't time and right. And so I really just had to remind them that, these personnel management decisions that are made and directives that are put out are personal things to people. They're not personnel moves. They're not a employee 0037 on a spreadsheet. So it's that saying that, I just use time and time again, and it really describes my leadership approach. But the subtitle is Leadership Lessons for the Battlefield and the Boardroom. I tried to write it for both military and civilian audiences because I know that a lot of what I learned how to do in the military and the things I didn't do well and improved in how I grew as a leader applies in the business world. And I'm already seeing that in some of the people that I'm consulting.
Is that available on Amazon?
It is, yeah. You can. I'll send you the link on the Facebook chat window there. I'll shoot you the link to it. But it's available on Amazon. I'd love to come speak about it, or a chance to come to the UK and test out that awful internet that you got. Drink some really good beer.
It'd be great to have a face-to-face and meet you. Well, Robert, I can only thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
You bet.
I really appreciate it, and I can wish you the best of luck for the future. And I really hope that your transition runs smoothly and you achieve everything that you wish to achieve.
Thanks. I wish you the same, Jamie. And reach out anytime if you want to connect. I'm happy to support and contribute to what it is you're doing. It really, it's something that's in my heart. So Jim connected us for the right reasons. So let's stay in touch.
Excellent. Absolutely. Right. Take care, Robert, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right. You too, my friend. Have a good day.
Thank you all for taking the time to listen to another Veterans Network podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show and discovered some valuable insight. Don't forget to check out Robert's book on Amazon titled It's Personal, Not Personnel, and visit our website to connect with fellow veterans and veteran-owned businesses at www.veteransnetwork.co.uk, where veterans support veterans.